Welcome to All About Money. Late last year, a Chinese university survey showed that more than 42% of respondents would leave Hong Kong for good if they could. That was 8% higher than a survey done about a year before. And around 1 in 4 of those who want to move said they'd already started making plans. Now, the top 3 picks for Hong Kongers are Canada, Australia and Taiwan. But one country that's seeing a surge in interest is Portugal, a European Union country that boasts glorious coasts, wonderful weather and a low bar for so-called golden visas. Now, to tell us all about Portugal and what it's like to move there, we have Lau Freeman, whose travel agency recently started helping people apply for this investment residency. Welcome to the program, Rachel. Thanks so much for coming up. Now, so this golden visa is officially called the Residence Permit for Investment Activity. And apparently, Portugal is much easier than other countries. Tell us why.
Well, it's relatively easier in terms of the eligibility, the amount of investment you have to make, and also the residency requirement.
Right.
Because basically at any age or any skills, you can apply for it. And also the minimum requirement is as low as 280k euro in rural areas.
Right.
And also you don't actually have to live there. Basically, you just need to be there for 7 days a year. And that's it. So like overall, it's relatively easy to achieve.
Right, so that's why we're seeing a surge in people being interested in Portugal.
Yes.
That, of course, and the wonderful weather. I don't know why you wouldn't want to stay there, really, right?
Yeah, true.
So give us a comparison, though. So you said 280,000 euros is the minimum that you need for investment to get this residency visa. How does that compare with other countries? Like, give us a sort of a baseline.
Yeah, for example, in other EU countries like Ireland, the process is much longer because it requires you to go through the process for 8 years, in which 4 years you have to actually live there. And for example, in Greece, you can apply for it with 250k minimum, but you cannot be employed in there. It means that you can't work there.
Oh, so the entire time when you're applying for the visa, you can't actually work there?
You cannot in Greece.
So with the investment visa, you still can't?
Investment visa, no. They require you to buy the properties there, but they have this clause saying that you cannot be employed by a Greece company.
Ah, I see.
Yeah,
so they don't want to take the money away from workers.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of defeat the purpose, I guess.
Right.
So also for other countries like Malta, they have this nationalities limitations, and certain kind of like nationalities, they're not allowed to apply for it. And also for Cyprus, it's another like top countries, but you can buy a property there, but you cannot rent it out. It means that you have to either live there or just let it empty.
Right. So now the Portuguese government said that 90% of this investment that's coming into Portugal actually goes into property. So people are basically just buying property and then that's it, right? So has it created problems in terms of property prices surging?
Yeah, indeed, the property prices kept like going up, especially in the city center. And for example, in Porto, where we live, the prices per square meter increased like 20% over a year. So there's no cheap housing or rent inside the city center anymore, but the suburbs area are relatively unaffected. And actually the government is aware of it. So they introduced this new law, new regulations, and they divide different zones in the city center according to the rent pressure. Oh. So they are like monitoring closely in terms of having the short-term rental license approval.
So this is like an Airbnb issue, right?
Yes, yes. So basically, they just keep it in check, guarantee that the local can still afford to live in the city center. So while balancing the foreign investment.
Well, that's a very wise move, right? Because you imagine that, you know, we in Hong Kong know certainly about the issue with property investment becoming an issue for local people's housing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's quite interesting to hear that the government there is actually actively trying to stop locals from not having homes.
Yeah.
So what about how do the locals perceive this whole golden visa? Often, you know, with these golden visa, people come in with big money. There's, they don't particularly try and assimilate or, live life like a local there. Is there any tension there? How do the locals perceive it?
Well, there's always two sides to a story, right? And actually, some of the Portuguese are very welcomed and open to this program because there are good things that comes with it, like the better infrastructure, better financial opportunities, and also like cultural exchange. So it's just not like all negative.
So late last year, the government is also saying that it would revise this immigration scheme, this golden visa. And the idea was to specifically boost investment in more rural areas and also out of just property. Because obviously buying property is just one option, right, to get the residence.
Yes.
Whereas there are other options. So tell us what these changes they're proposing are. And, would it work to get the money, into other things than property?
Well, they're proposing different stuff. They already got the funds options in science and art and cultural preservance, that kind of things. And also they're proposing this green visa, which requires people to invest in green projects such as ecotourism and green energy and also organic farming. And it's very, very new. It's just, I think, this information came in last October, and it's expected to have more information reviewed in the coming March.
Right, interesting. Yeah. So when you say arts and culture and all that, can you give us some concrete examples? What exactly does that entail?
That's actually, I haven't heard of anyone who's doing that yet, because it's relatively difficult. It has to be from an accredited organization, and that has to be an ongoing project. And some art programs are not open for non-locals. So it's kind of rare.
Some people may wonder, why is Portugal making the bar, this golden visa entry bar, so low when there are countries like Canada, for example, has gotten rid, or BC side has gotten rid of this investment visa, for example. So why is Portugal making it so simple? Some people may ask, are they desperate for cash? Does that mean also that they have some socioeconomic issues that they need to resolve, which may translate to, certain problems, living there?
I think because of the Great Recession in 2011, and it hits a lot of countries, especially like Europe countries, and Portugal is definitely one of them. So everybody basically need investors to help to revive the country and the economy. So I wouldn't say they're desperate, but it was a measure to fix the current situation. And then they implemented it quite well, because together with the improved tourism and increased export, they actually got their GDP high up again. And it was showing like positive numbers in terms of the debt to GDP ratio and also their debt rating.
All right, it sounds very successful. So what are the nationalities mostly that join this golden visa program?
Mostly Chinese and Brazilian and also Turkish. But now the Americans are catching up too.
Are they?
Yeah.
There's a bit of an exodus going on, I believe, out of America from what I heard also. So when you say Chinese, do you mean Greater China region or just mainland Chinese?
Mainland Chinese, but lately there are more inquiries from Hong Kong people.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to ask you. Since the unrest sort of snowballed in the last half year, have you seen a surge in inquiries from Hong Kong people trying to go to Portugal?
Yes, absolutely.
And what do they tell you? Do they tell you the reasons why they want to go?
Yeah, they're very honest, and some of them are they are family with kids, and they say they want to move there soon because they want a better future and more stable environment for their children. And some are just like they're not sure whether they can move yet, but they would like to have a second option when they need it later.
Right, so these are just inquiries, initial inquiries. How many of them are like actually seriously pursuing it?
They all seem very serious, but I think it's not an easy decision to make, especially if you have family and you're like looking to uproot them to a new country. So I think it's a very thought-through decision you have to make, and you have to do a lot of preparation beforehand.
I mean, that's a really good point, like uprooting an entire family. Even if it's yourself, you may have family, you know, where your home is, you're moving entirely to a different place. Yeah. What are some of the issues that you've seen maybe with you know, this kind of migration?
First, if you have children, like education is a thing you have to like think through before you like commit to it, and also like where you're gonna buy and how you're gonna make a living there, like all little stuff that matters, and it's not like you can solve like overnight, so it takes a lot of planning.
Right, and so in terms of education, for example, is Portugal somewhere that's known for? Is it easy for someone who's from the Chinese culture to go to Portugal and start school there?
I wouldn't say easy because at the end of the day, you need to have a certain level of Portuguese.
Right.
But it's not hard to assimilate into the society because the government actually offers 300 hours of free Portuguese lessons to immigrants to help them to assimilate into the societies. And also there are like a lot of private tutors and like Portuguese teachers that they can teach you Portuguese, or like me, we live in the city center, so basically everybody speaks English.
Right.
So it's not that hard in terms of language-wise.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, let's hold that thought for now, but when we come back, we will have more with you.